What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Kyle Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? The guest on today's show is absolutely incredible and has a jaw-dropping story about his journey investing in real estate thus far. Mike has experience doing tons of different roles, as well as been in so many unique situations that have granted him unreal amounts of knowledge and wisdom and springboarded him to really crazy places. There is so much extremely valuable information and lessons in this episode, and you might have to listen to it a second time to really absorb everything. In this episode, we get into a bunch of different topics, from running the property the right way and getting a full 8 hours of sleep, doing your own due diligence in transactions, systematizing your processes to scale, and so much more. This was a great chat, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 32 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, I have the great pleasure of talking to Mike Buckley, a super crazy real estate investor working full-time as an investor and an entrepreneur doing extremely big things. What's going on, Mike? How is everything going, man? What is new?
Hey, nothing too much new going on. Just, working in real estate, and it's every day is always amazing in real estate.
That is the dream, man. That is the absolute dream.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, seriously. I mean, it is really blessed to be able to kind of work in the business and not have to kind of do it as a side project. I kind of dove right into it. Pretty much had to deal with every aspect of this business.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. I bet there kind of comes a little bit of stuff that comes with that, I guess you could say. Things that you have to deal with, they come up and stuff.
All the time. I mean, yeah, there's always something that comes up. I mean, you pretty much, like when you're working in the rental business, it's the responsibility. You got all these tenants that, you provide a solid living for these guys. Like it's not, it's not something where you can take lightly. When I do something, I want to do it properly, do it right. And, I get my 8 hours every night, knowing that I'm doing my best to provide the best service of housing to all of the tenants that I have.
Yeah, that is absolutely beautiful. Oh my God. So to kind of jump right into things, Mike, what kind of initially got you into real estate? What's kind of your backstory?
So actually, before I even went to college, and it was back in high school. So my father always wanted to try and flip a property.
Mm-hmm.
So back in high school, he ended up trying to do a flip project on the side. He has his business doing food importing, but always wanted to try and do something in real estate.
Yeah.
So he ended up buying like a total fixer upper property over in Lakeville way back, and I ended up doing a lot of the carpentry work because he partnered up with a contractor, and we ended up doing pretty much everything, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved working with my hands. It was so different too, because like all up until that point, I always thought I wanted to do like a desk job or do something.
Yeah.
As soon as I went in and started working with my hands on this, and especially real estate, and seeing how you can take a total like disaster of a property and just turn it around, and I was like, wow, I'm hooked. But I did end up going on to go to college, get a finance degree at BU, and then by the time I got through it, and I'm still thinking, hey, maybe I'll try the finance route, go get a job working downtown somewhere, and got towards the end, and I was like, I just can't do it. I was like, something didn't sit right with me. It's kind of a weird story. I went to I had to get a mirror fixed on my car at the time, and the guy at the auto body shop, he owned it, and he loved everything about the auto body shop. It was like his baby. Like small business was his thing, and I was
Yeah.
that happened for a reason. I felt like it was like, you know what? I knew at that moment, I said, I want to try and do something on my own, or try and, maybe even it was real estate, for instance. Right. And I was like, I just saw the passion that this guy had. And I said, I was going to these, they had these internship meets where like all these companies would come and they'd be standing around at these desks and tables, and not a single person that was there had the passion that this guy had, doing his own business and running his own thing. And at that moment, I was like, I got to find a way to get to this point. So then what happened was, I told this story to, my family, and my father still, he still had the real estate bug. He was like, I don't know how to do this, but if you want to try and do this, you're an educated person. I'll trust you. So we ended up going and just diving straight into a commercial property in Randolph, Massachusetts. And it was quite an experience because I didn't know anything about property management. Nothing. I couldn't even fix it. I mean, I just knew I loved working with my hands, but I didn't really know how to do anything.
Yeah.
So I got right into it with, I was actually still going to school at the time, and it was towards the end of like my senior year. And I was going to this building and going there, collecting the rent or checking on some of the tenants and things like that. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, how exactly does this work? And I had never learned anything about real estate, hadn't read a real estate book, just knew that there was something to do with wealth, and you could get very wealthy doing this. Had zero clue how, didn't know about depreciation, didn't know about appreciation or like loan pay downs, none of that. I mean, a little bit of it from real estate finance, but like didn't really grasp the full concept until I really just got into it and was like, this is it. You swim or you sink.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a determined person. So I just kind of went into it head first, and, tried to master it, tried to do everything, started with YouTube, if I had to fix something. So I wanted to just take everything apart and like, fix it, make it right. If I saw something that was wrong, like, how do I make this better? Like siding, doing paint, how to paint the exterior of a building. And, slowly I realized that most of it has to do with your tenants and rent collections. And we found out very quickly that a lot of the building wasn't paying. So we had to go through, evict a lot of the building. We had people that were like commercial tenants were living in the building. You can't have that. Hilarious stuff. Like people, he had quite a crew of people in there, and it was pretty eventful to go in there and have to, tell people, hey, look, you can't be doing this here. You can't live in the building. And I wanted to, it was sad because I went into this wanting to please everybody. Like, oh yeah, like, it was always like, yeah, sure. Like people were coming in and saying, oh, can I have like extra thermostats for my other offices or something? It was like,
Sure.
oh, maybe, sure, why not? Found out very quickly that no, you have to learn how to like actually run this. Like make sure that you're not just spending all the money out. Like when the rent money comes in, you can't just, you got to be very particular about what you're spending it on. And it was a baptism by fire is what a lot of people would call it.
That's so crazy, and especially to kind of see that from, like a late high school and college level, and just to kind of know that like working with your hands was the thing that, you wanted to do. And then to literally just like get thrown into a commercial property, and like you said, it's, it's going to sink or swim,
Yep.
and literally just jump right in, both feet forward. And wow.
It was like it was the aircraft carrier kind of phenomenon. The previous owner, I can't see how he would have made any money on this property. I mean, he ended up living in the building himself at the time, and he was just going there, and he had to get it, make it worth his while. And he was band-aiding a lot of the repairs. And what we kind of built a philosophy where like, we don't want to do any of these Band-Aid repairs. We don't want to have to lose tenants because of the maintenance in the building. So we wanted to kind of do everything right. We realized that it was a lot of deferred maintenance. There was a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff, like, pans in the ceilings of the floors below. So when the AC was leaking, it would just leak through a floor,
Yeah.
an emergency pan in the ceiling below with a trip switch going up to shut it off, things like that. Yeah, lots of pans in the ceilings. So we're like, yeah, no, we don't want to be those guys. So we kind of, that was what our core values were on. We're like, no, we'll spend the money up front to make sure we're not that guy. And there's a lot of people that's how they run the stuff, and they can run a successful business that way. But we said, hey, that's not going to be us. We're going to kind of go through everything, do it right, and put a lot of money up front with like some roof work. And, we bought a building with a 5-year-old roof that was a shingle over, and it didn't have any proper underlayment or ice and water. So we had that big giant snow year of 2015. That was the first year I started. And boy, was that quite the year. I learned about ice dams, lots of water coming in during that winter. Yeah, it was crazy. It was definitely a great learning experience, though. Wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Wow. I really want to kind of touch on, the part that like you decided, kind of what like your core values were and stuff like that. And you were like, all right, this is how this was run, but that's not how we're going to run this from this point forward. I feel like that's kind of not really talked about as much as it should, just like making it run as like optimal as you can instead of, just kind of, whatever works for now. And
I mean, there is a strategy to that where people just collect as much money as possible and then just defer all the maintenance and just pass the buck to the next guy, or have to sell to a cash buyer or something in 5 to 10 years, but you pretty much ran the property into the ground.
Yeah.
We were like, no, we looked at this as we wanted to build like almost like some sort of empire. We said, we want these properties, you buy them, you keep them, and you just assume you're going to have this forever. So what would you do if this was going to be a cash generator for years? Just think like long term. Just keep thinking long term.
Yeah.
And as you're like, yeah, you know what? Just if you got the money, put it up front. Keep putting the money back into the property. You don't take it and crunch pennies. Just, do it right. So even in that way, we kept tenants. I mean, we got to say, I don't think we've lost any tenants because of maintenance issues or because of like mismanagement. And it's definitely something that was our core values. Like I said, I get my 8 hours of sleep every night. And if I didn't, then there would be a problem and I need to make an adjustment to make sure that I
do. Yeah. That's incredible, man. Would you say kind of like from your perspective, just kind of like biting these issues that come up in the butt now, is a lot more effective than, just kind of like putting a Band-Aid on it and like basically deferring those expenses? Like, do you think that like eventually you're going to have to deal with the problem?
Yeah.
So like might as well kind of do it now.
Do that, or you'll end up with like a tenant that knows what's going on. It's like, hey, this is ridiculous. Like, you didn't do it right from the first time, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And then it looks, at some point, it's like you got to take a look at yourself and say, this is on you. Like you gotta do the responsible thing. And even if it does kind of suck a little bit in the beginning, you got to do what you got to do to get through it, and kind of keep the system going and keep your tenants happy. And it's worked for us. You can always justify a higher rental value too, because you're keeping up with the place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Just to, kind of stay like sustainable, like you said, over the long term. And I really like that philosophy too. Like, imagining that if you bought this building, like if you're going to have it for the rest of your life, like how would you like go about things rather than like, oh, I might have it for a little bit and then I'll get rid of it. And like, I feel like it's a whole different mindset,
Yeah. I mean, like you got to kind of just think about it like, you're going to want these for for years. Like
Yeah.
it's this is like either a retirement plan or it's you know, the way that my father looked at it was he said, you know, he wanted to be the guy that would be able to start it, and then it'd have to have someone like me that would be able to work in it to be able to just kind of operate it correctly, that it provides wealth for generations to come. That was the idea behind it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, that's why we set it up this way, because we're thinking long haul, not just like get in, get out, and you know, mess around. Of course, once you know, after about 10 years or so, you know, or once everything kind of depreciates, you know, then you make some moves. But it's better, in our opinion. It was kind of like, hey, you know, you get something, put the money in, keep it for a very long time. Eventually, as you pay the mortgages down, you know, this start to really that's when you start to really see that cash flow come in, is later.
Yeah. Wow. I love that vision. And speaking of vision, what is your drive and your vision for the long term?
Pretty much a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you know, I think ultimately though, I like to see it more systematized. Obviously, I mean, I was kind of running around like a chicken with my head cut off. You know, I dabbled in almost every aspect of this business, from whether it was from doing the maintenance, or you know, either me working with the contractors, or if I hired well, actually I ended up becoming a contractor myself too. Like, I got my CSL. But I mean, just working with, every time like a sub would show up, just go there, help them out with it, try and keep the costs down, or like try to be a helper, you know, and like
Yeah.
learn everything. But I think the overall vision is, once I've kind of figured out how to do all of the aspects, whether it was like doing the books, or yeah, like working with contract, or collecting the rents, or watching the court process for evictions, kind of finding a way to delegate it, know what works, find the best way of doing it, start kind of open up a branch of everything from the lead generation to generating your own leads to buy properties, close on them, have all the management set up in place, whether it's third party or created a larger company at some point that has it in house, or have a development team for, you know, new acquisitions or changing use and dealing with the town or the city. And, you know, maybe even at some point, have like a money lending, once it's, you know, if you could borrow against, or lend against like what's it, not your 401k, but you can lend against like a self-directed IRA, you know, have something like that in the way future. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I think, systematizing and building it all up and having the different departments, or maybe even a brokerage, you know?
Yeah. 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 I'm obsessed with that, man. I am absolutely in love with the idea of like systematizing and like standard operating procedures, and like just kind of delegating out as much as you can, you know, to really just like scale everything up and build something like much bigger than yourself, you know. And it's a really crazy way of thinking about it. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, a lot of times people look at it in unit count, and you know, oh, I want like so many properties or generating this much. I mean, I kind of have always looked at a vision as being the systems you have in place,
Yeah.
because you know, you'll know how many units or how much money it will take to get you to those points, but to kind of map it all out is where I'm at. I look at it like, what is this system, or the ultimate business, to be able to keep this going and be able to grow it. So
Yeah.
yeah, eventually I have it all lined up and ready to, like, okay, we need this amount of units to be able to open up this department, and then be able to run it on its own. And see, you know, that's where the vision, and that's where the direction is kind of going
Yeah. That's a lot of fun too. You know, it's a even like just have a whiteboard and be like, you know, trying to picture like, oh, you know, in 10 years, like hopefully, you know, X happens and we have like these two departments and like they're linking up with this one, and like really just getting your mind to go crazy, you know, to see like what kind of things are possible, and like just like, yeah, you know, how like efficient and everything you can build this.
now. Oh yeah, you know, it just
It's
makes
awesome.
it operate a lot more smoothly. You know, when
Yeah.
you're trying to do everything. You know, obviously in the beginning, it's like, yeah, you want to try everything. because it's like then you have an idea of how it's supposed to look, like, so then that way people can't, they'll tell you, oh no, it's only supposed to, this is how it's supposed to work, when it's really not. They're just trying to make it easier for themselves or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you kind of already, you're like, all right, no. I've done this before. I know how this is supposed to work.
Hold up. Yeah.
Obviously, having the well-oiled machine is the direction that people want to go in, and that would be advice that I would give to anyone, is have an exit strategy so that how you're going to remove yourself from the weeds and kind of get yourself more into the larger picture of moving around different positions. And there's even different business structures of ways that you can structure, whether you want to in-house stuff or either third party it, and those will be some conversations that I have to have.
Yeah. I want to touch on something you said a couple minutes ago, actually, about like at first kind of trying out like everything. And I mean, even if it's just kind of like any business, along with real estate, but like just to kind of, get a taste on, like you said, like how things are supposed to look, and actually like, going through the process of doing them yourself, and just to even kind of see like a cost perspective, so like if all right, the first time, that I needed to put a hardwood floor down, or, something,
Yeah.
it costs like X this much, say it was like X this much for labor, it took me this long. Like, here's like a rough ballpark of a price kind of thing. So then would you say maybe when you had like contractors come in and give quotes, then you would kind of have a little bit more experience of, all right, like for this, like it's,
Yeah, like you have, when you have someone come in and try to quote you, then you kind of know what's reasonable, or like how long something's going to take. And then you can, if you have an idea of how long something's going to take, and you can kind of work back their numbers that they're giving you. And what I've learned too is everything is negotiable. I mean, like, you think sometimes like people give you a price, everyone's like, oh, that's it. You can go back and kind of like ask questions and get lower prices, or once you start talking the talk with people, like whether it's with doing the work on a property, or flooring, or bathrooms and things like that, like you can go in and start saying, okay, well, so what are you going to do with this, or which material are you going to use? And then you start asking different, you start asking them good questions, so that they're like, oh no, like I'm not going to try and rip this guy off, because you got, he knows if I go in there and start, putting sheetrock in a shower to have tile go on top of it, that's going to be a no-go.
No. Yeah. Wow. Ooh, so we kind of got into it a little bit earlier, but maybe if there's kind of anything else that you wouldn't mind sharing, would you mind kind of telling the story of acquiring your first property, and any like lessons that you learned from it, like any really big ones?
Big lessons. Yes. Okay. So a lot, probably the biggest lesson is always do your due diligence. I mean, so when we were looking at the first property, kind of had a realtor that went in and told us, oh yeah, this will be great. Here's your expenses. This is your this is what your rent roll looks like. This is your expenses. And I think there's not enough you can say about do your due diligence. You end up, you buy something, for instance, and then you realize, okay, well, the tenants weren't actually paying rent. There's a reason why this person's selling this property.
Yeah.
So that building in Randolph had been up for sale for 5 years. So why has it been up for sale for 5 years? You know what I'm saying? Like, think about that. So, you kind of put all of the pieces together. Usually when people are selling something, there's a reason for it. Nowadays, it's probably because, the market's really high, but when we were buying it wasn't like any astronomical, something like that now. So like, you'd have to say, all right, so there's, is it because of the tenants? Is it because of deferred maintenance? Like, you got to figure out that puzzle piece and try to, a lot of times people are going to you have your sales guys, they get involved and they want to make a sale, and you got to kind of
Yeah.
go in there and not just blindly trust anybody. And that was a good lesson I've learned over the years. Is you can't blindly trust anybody. You got to really, you know, go in there for yourself, and remember you're your own best due diligence person.
Yeah.
You don't trust somebody else to do that for you, especially sales guys.
That's huge, man. That's a really big one. Oh my God. I mean, even to see, like just properties that come up like now, even like, something on the market or something, just, for a little bit of perspective, like, why is this the price that it is? If it's been up for like how long, like what kind of like what kind of market cycle are we in? Like just kind of figure out what that puzzle piece is. Like, why is this like this? Wow, that's an incredible
Yeah,
thing to figure out.
I know it's like it seems like it's so basic, but like once you get involved with, real estate's a great like great wealth building tool. So
Yeah,
it's very easy to hype it up, but when it
yeah,
comes down to it, of course, like yeah, we're doing well with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, would I have wanted it to happen any other way? No, probably not, because it was a great learning experience. But at the same time, if I was to tell somebody else, I'd be like, hey, yeah, just make sure, like when you go in, like it was estoppel agreements, like make sure that the tenants sign that they're actually paying this, and check the bank statements too, if they can provide, to make sure that you're actually collecting all of the rent. Because a lot of times what people do is they'll fill a building up just to fill it up with anybody, just to make it look like the building's full. And then
yeah,
so there's all kinds of different tricks, but it's like, yeah, just really look into it and make sure that and what you're buying is what you're buying. I mean, the first deal, or this wasn't on the first deal, but yeah, we bought a rooming house that was actually a bed and breakfast on another one. And so it's like, it sounds like so basic, right? But like once you
yeah,
get there and you're looking at it and you see the listing as, oh, rooming house, and they're using it as a rooming house or halfway house. And but then once it gets down to it, if you want to change that, like to either pull a permit to use it as something else, you're gonna have to go through a whole development cycle. It's like,
yeah.
that was probably another huge lesson. You could talk about all these different lessons you learn, but it's like, I guess a lot of people do have to go through it, and there's always different puzzle pieces in every single deal and every transaction that you need to figure out, and you'll learn from different mistakes. Everybody will.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge eye opener. It's I guess, see something a certain way. And even like, as you're walking through a property, or, you're analyzing an opportunity or something, like it's, I guess, just kind of the things that you might not see right off the bat, like something like that, I assume, it probably took, a little bit of digging to kind of see like, oh, the city actually recognizes it, as this, but like it's being advertised as this, like, and just to kind of open up like another can of worms, like you're gonna have to deal with this. And
It is. You're into a development project. Yeah,
yeah,
use is huge. I mean, especially when you're getting into commercial. You got to know. I mean, what's allowable and what's not, and the cities, and also what direction the cities are trying to go into. Because I mean, a lot of them, they have an agenda, or either they want low income housing, or maybe they don't, or they're trying to do one or the other. And you know, yeah, we figured out that the hard way. We figured that out at the zoning board meeting, which is not a good thing to figure that out.
yeah,
When you have a whole presentation and you've already put money up to have architect plans drawn up and things like that. And yeah, we were a little shocked by that. It was a big lesson learned.
yeah, I can imagine. Some of those meetings are really cool too. And even oh, I forget what it's called. It was like a big packet. I haven't actually like read through it before. It was like the master plan, maybe something like that. But is that pretty much, I guess, like, the direction that the city's going, more or less? Like, like you said, like what kind of, things are important to them, like what their sections are trying to grow on, maybe turn this more like urban, or Is it just kind of like the direction that they're going, I guess?
Yeah, like what they want to do. I mean, like right now, for instance, Fall River's got a lot of market rate apartments coming up, and that's kind of like, everyone's always talking about the stigma of the low income housing, and they're like, oh, we have enough low income housing, or we don't need to build another slum or something like that. And you have all the neighbors, they show up at the meetings as much as, people care about what's going to happen in their neighborhood. People show
Yeah.
up to those zoning board meetings, and and yeah, so in Fall River, for instance, the market rate stuff is coming along. The downtown, they get some more apartments coming up downtown, and it's really exciting to see the directions of some places and what's going on.
Yeah. And even to just kind of get that, I guess, like insider information, on like certain areas and stuff and what kind of direction they're taking it. And, just to maybe kind of see some other opportunities that other people might not.
Oh yeah, like I mean, for instance, like Fall River in general,
Yep.
it already has a stigma of like every time if you talk to people from outside of Fall River about Fall River or even like New Bedford, the South Coast in general, everyone just thinks, oh yeah, like there's gonna be, you're gonna deal with some bad, like terrible tenants all the time, and all the areas, oh, it's crap, and D-class properties, and sometimes since being here, I actually ended up having to move down here. I was up in Boston for a while, and then once I think my father decided, he was like, oh, let's go take a look at some cash flow properties. So once we did that, I ended up moving down here to kind of take care of everything. Cause yeah, I mean, there's some high cash flow, but there's also some problems and things that you'd have to take care of. But
Yeah.
now that I'm here and I'm down here, I know the neighborhoods, and it's not all like that. Like if you want to invest in some of the better neighborhoods, like you can kind of find that sweet spot between really high returns and, more stable appreciation. I mean, I wouldn't say total appreciation, but like, kind of that happy medium. But like you
Yeah.
would never think that unless you actually came down and looked at it and dove into it yourself. And like I think that's a big, stigma that a lot of people look at when they look at areas like Fall River, New Bedford.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And even stemming back to, doing your own due diligence, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
hearing, other perspectives and stuff, great. But actually going there yourself, you're probably going to see things through another lens and be like, oh, that's actually like really cool. Like, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it is nice to see like some of the progress that's happening in some of these places. Like, I mean, you look at like downtown New Bedford, for instance, and you see all the progress, different restaurants and things that pop up, and there's a lot of growth opportunity. And I think that was kind of the idea was that you're cash flowing now, but at some point like later down the road, you never know. I mean, look at all those
right?
properties in Alston, Brighton, and Boston that
Yeah.
they used to be horrible areas, and now that all the people are sitting on like gold mines because they just stuck it out, they went through all of that time, and that there is potential that could happen here. Maybe not. It could be forever. But I mean, at the same time, like you know, you gotta, you just take a shot at it. Why not,
Yeah.
right?
Why not?
So we got the commuter rail coming. I'm sure everyone's anticipating that, and that's what's helping to kind of spike a lot of the values here too. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that. I really am.
Yeah. That's a really good point about, like some of the towns and neighborhoods in Boston too. Like just looking at, like what it was versus, kind of what it is now, and like, hundreds of percents of appreciation, and like you might not have actually expected that, but
No, that's just the gravy, right?
yeah,
It's like you
exactly.
got into it for the cash flow, and then now you're like, oh no, like 80 years old, and it's like, whoa, what happened?
This is cool too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never know with real estate. There's always, it can change overnight. Anything can happen.
Yeah. That's definitely why I fell in love with it. What do you consider to be the biggest variable to expand your portfolio?
Definitely like networking more and trying to find a good system of generating leads, or like trying to get that component to the business added. Because as you know, I mean, from kind of how I started was just we dove into anything. My father helped me out with you have to partner with someone with money. So luckily I had my father. He was able to do it. He wanted to do it too. And diving into it, and it's like, hey, well, you're smart enough, you can figure it out. Now that's great. You can definitely you can make a living at it. It was lucky enough that there was enough property that I was handling that was able to support me.
Yeah.
And now looking back at it, in order to kind of get the systematization, or however you say that word. I'm not exactly a literary genius here, but but the idea is that when you find really good deals, then you're able to kind of add in all of the other components, and you can kind of take yourself out of those equations. Because the way I'm looking at it now is, if there's a deal where there's a me function where I say, oh yeah, well, I'll just do this and that way it'll make the deal work. That's not a deal, because
Yeah.
at some point you're going to cap yourself out. And I know there's some people that, you could own one rooming house a year, and you could, pay the mortgage down and sit in and do everything, like from snaking toilets to, doing all your own extermination. You can make a living at it, but you're never going to get to that next level of like the huge, like mega wealth. So you got to start it from the beginning, which is right from the start of deal creation, or find a way to get better deals. So that's kind of been my thing lately, is even if you find a way of coming up with, even like a new segment of the business to be able to find leads, whether it's, direct mail or cold calling, but ultimately it's for your own portfolio. Whenever that day comes, that's, you want to get that all set up, because that's, you make the money when you buy, as everyone says, cliche as it is, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. One thing that I'm kind of sort of looking into right now, like just out of curiosity, is how like the partnering works. Like if one person like brings the deal and like goes through it, then like how apt would like other people be to potentially bring the capital or split the capital or what? And well, I guess what's kind of like your experience been with partnering?
Like with for other deals, like doing like off market stuff, or
Yeah. I
lately.
guess like just working with other people.
Oh, working with other people. So like lately I've been I'll end up, because I'm fairly new to this. This was actually just started, within this past year, really getting into the nitty gritty of it. But lately it's just been I end up finding deals for people that I've networked with, and kind of spoon feed them deals to kind of get this off the ground.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I guess you would call it like bird dogging, or where you would end up you find something, and then it's going to work for this person, or you get that network bigger. Like you have lunch with a bunch of different people, or talking to different guys, like yourself, for instance. Like if somebody called me from Lowell with a property, I'd say, hey, why don't you talk to this guy? And then you know what I mean. The idea is, I'm not trying to maximize the amount of money that I'm making. I'd rather just take base hits just to get into the flow of how this works. Just like we were saying before, get the system going, then figure the money out later. Just get into the groove of it, learn how it works from start to finish, and then figure out how to maximize the profit later. So, this is a good way. It's a good way to also network, because it's able, when I was kind of working for just doing the stuff for the property portfolio, there wasn't really any value that I could bring to anybody else, because I'm maxed out at, my responsibility has to be for the family portfolio, or like, because everything falls back on my shoulders, and it's like, if I give up, then that's it. It's all gone. So pretty much the lead generation stuff, it allows me to kind of bring value to other guys in the area. Or like when I know somebody say, hey, yeah, well, if we're not taking deals down right now, we're just fixing up, doing capital expenditures, kind of just focusing in and really maximizing the profits on our own stuff. They could say, hey, if something comes up, this might work for you, or you end up, at some point, I'm sure I end up putting stuff under contract myself, and either we'll end up start growing this again at some point. Just for right now, it's just I want to see if I could take this a different direction into a new segment of the grand scheme of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Even like just for the purpose of like just building their relationships now, and like just like giving people deals, and like, they know that, you know, like you're doing this, and like you'll think of them, and like they'll think of you, and just kind of building their relationships now, like as you come across stuff, like to always, like just be getting something out of it. You know what I mean? Like for finding the deals, whether it's, an acquisition for yourself, for your portfolio, or, potentially one for somebody else's, make
Yep.
them happy as a clam with you. And
Exactly.
then, like,
Everybody wins. It's like, hey, you're
exactly.
linking people together. It's a team.
Yeah.
Like everyone says, it's a team. Real estate's a team sport, right?
It
It's like,
is.
even if you're not making $1 million off of it, or you're not making the $100,000 flip on it, I mean, that's fine. At least, like you said, helping out the network, helping sellers out too. I mean, there's people out there that they truly do need to sell a property.
Yeah.
Or there's, like you say, tired landlords, or they're looking to sell to other younger guys who have, they got that will and the drive and determination to be able to get in there, deal with the tenants, and get it back going again.
Yeah. Definitely. What is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
We touched on this before, but definitely, I think it. I think it was do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Like, not trusting, not just blindly trusting everything you hear. Like, you listen to a bunch of podcasts, or you read different books, and you get different perspectives on wealth, or on real estate, for instance. And you don't have to necessarily take everything that they say and be like, that's the end all be all, or think, oh, well, this guy did it this way, so it has to be done like this, or you can only do Burr to make $1 million. Like, there's different ways of doing stuff. And it really all comes down to your personal preference and what you're looking to do for your vision.
Yeah.
And yeah, so doing your due diligence to see if this is something that's going to line up with what you want to do, and not blindly trusting when someone, run your own numbers, check the use on properties,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that a lot too, just to see, like other people's perspectives and stuff. And then to, like you said, figure out what works for you, and be able to just kind of pick, like the different aspects of a lot of different perspectives, and just kind of like, build yourself up with the right pieces, that kind of fit the vision and stuff.
Yep.
Like you said, like, there's not going to be like one way to do something. There's probably a million ways to do something, but
there is, like, whether you want to do flips, like, I think setting your expectations, and even with like the people you partner with, it's, you look at cash flow, it's a small payment that always comes in.
yeah,
It's like on Monday morning at 10 a.m. on the first of the month, that let's say you got up at 10 that day. Well, the check still showed up, right? It's like, but it's a smaller check. Or you can turn around and you could flip properties, and you're up there, you're hustling it out, you're, getting the crew going, and yeah, you're making a lot bigger checks. It depends on what's your preference. And if your expectations aren't, you got to set the right expectations for what you want to do, and then structure it to get to that level of how to do it. Like you said, there's not one way to do it. Just do what you want to do that's going to fit for what your vision is.
yeah. That's what I love about real estate, man. It is like how creative everything is. Like And then once in a while, like there'll be a strategy that somebody came up with, and you're like, whoa, you can do that? Like if I do this like a little bit different, like I can get like a whole different result. And like just the total creativity of it all, like
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing.
Oh, you hear that was, when we first started and I was in it, I listened to a bunch of other guys that have been investing for, they invested and they had a couple of 3 families or something. And they say, oh,
Yeah.
don't do this. Get into commercial. You don't want to deal with late night phone calls with clogged toilets. And then you get into commercial. Then you get there, and then there's not as much of a tenant demand because commercial property nowadays is a prime example. But like, commercial property in the suburbs, that demand's not always there. It's like there's always a challenge that you have to
Yeah.
face with whatever direction you take it. There's going to be a challenge, and that's why people are in business. That's why all of us in real estate have a business, because we're willing to do something that somebody else isn't or hasn't figured out how to do yet.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Wait, so there isn't a really easy way to make millions of dollars with real estate? Oh no.
Oh my God. No, trust me.
Since when?
It's a simple process. It's simple. And anybody can do it. But you have to figure out, these are the challenges of each direction you go. You're gonna face challenges, and you have to find a way to really get comfortable in your niche. And I
Yeah.
mean, we
And
ended up branching out into the rooming house field of doing rent by the room. You
mhm.
end up with a room with a mini fridge and a microwave and maybe a hot plate if you want to bring that. And we provide a bed. What the challenges are is it's high turnover, so you got to know how to like bulletproof the units and be able to gear them for short-term rentals. And then also like you have to factor all that in, and you're paying the utilities, so you got to find ways of either insulating and finding more efficient ways of heating the building or providing electric, because if you're paying for all of it, then you're going to have to micromanage, and then using like in-house managers as well to be able to leverage people in the property to be able to like tell you what's going on so that you can make the right calls and right decisions on what to go or what to do next.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it's that to somebody else, that might sound like hell. But to us, they're like, well, hey, I mean, we'll take it. We'll take
Yeah.
it. Like I said, you can make a decent amount. You can make more if you're doing it yourself, because there's more ways where you can take over some of the day-to-day tasks and you get more out of it. So that's kind of why we ended up going in that direction. But like, yeah, to somebody else, that might sound like crap. They'd rather have a nice piece of property in a major city like Boston and break even or throw 100 or $200 into it a month,
Yeah.
and then somehow over 5 years the appreciation value is like trumped that like tenfold. So who cares about that $200 a month? That's like a savings account, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Ooh, how do you define wealth?
Wealth is definitely not that high salary to me. I define wealth that, you know, you decided to get up at, I don't know, 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and that's totally fine. And you get up and you're like, well, here's my schedule. I can do X, Y, Z that's in the business, and, move a few things, make a few decisions, and the rest of it's all working in order. You might not be you might not be making a killing because you pretty much get out what you put in at that point, because it's a choice. You're
Yeah.
making the choice for yourself. How much do I actively want to be in this, or how much would I rather just autopilot it and then just make a little bit less? But it's the decision that you're able
Yeah.
to make, and you don't have somebody like breathing down your neck, like, oh, you need to be here at this time and you're going to do just this task, XYZ all day. And it's never going to change. And
Yep.
as long as you're working here, and, your other coworkers will be making up stories about you because they don't like the fact that you did it better than them, or, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, to me, is wealth, is just having that option to be able to, you know, create your own schedule.
Yeah, I love that, man. And especially to, just be able to, like you said, like just kind of dictate, what you want to do and what makes you happy and stuff. Instead of, being tied down by, the things that you have to be obligated to, to pay the bills and, whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, you have, like, you kind of, wealth is like you're accumulating assets, and they're kind of just paying you dividends. And
Yeah.
it's like, once you kind of figure out what your expenses are and you have that number where, yeah, you're like, I'm okay with this. Like, this is fine. I could live the rest of my life, and I'll be okay. You got that number, you know how much it costs, factor in inflation, of course. Well, who knows what's going to happen now with inflation, but
Yeah.
once you have that
Yeah.
factored in, it's like, okay, well, I have a target now.
Yeah.
How much assets, or how many assets do I need that'll shed off X amount of money, being conservative, to be able to cover these expenses that will serve my lifestyle. So, that to me is how wealth is defined.
Yeah. I feel like it's really important to kind of have that metric and to have that number, to be like, kind of tracking your spending and stuff like that and your monthly expenses, and just kind of see, I guess, where you're at, and kind of like a score on a scorecard, so then like you just said, how much, what kind of assets and like what's the quantity of them do I need to have them pay, X much this month,
Well,
and still, like you said, be
that's
conservative and
financial freedom. Yeah, like, that's pretty
yeah,
much, that's financial freedom.
exactly.
That's where I'm at. Rather, from a personal standpoint, I'd rather take that than the really high salary with, you have to keep feeding that beast. Like,
Yeah.
every month, once you rack up a certain amount of payments, whether it's mortgages, whether it's credit card debt, you have to keep feeding that beast. So, like, that's a big factor of, like, why some people won't do this, is because they don't want to give up that lifestyle. And, that once you start accumulating a mortgage, like, for, you buy a large house, like, the bank tells you, okay, you can afford a house that's like $350,000. Now, does that mean you should go out and buy a house that's worth
No.
$350,000? Probably not. If you have any shot of, like, trying to break that cycle,
Yeah.
you probably don't want to max it out, because then that way, then you have to keep having that same job, because you can't stop that.
Yeah.
Because once you stop, then you lose all of the stuff that you have to keep working to afford.
Yep.
So, like, kind of the idea of, like, wealth and financial freedom is that, let's say you got up that 11 o'clock on that Tuesday, right? And you're like, oh, well, I was doing some of, I was working in the business, and I was kind of just making enough, or shedding off enough where I was happy with it. It's like, hey, you know what? I don't want to do that today. So I got up at 11 o'clock that Tuesday. Maybe it's like 75 years old or whatever. And say, hey,
Yeah.
I could just sub somebody in to take over what I was doing day to day, fill
Yep.
in for me, take a little bit less money, because, it'll generate a little bit, and take a little bit of a cut, or probably a big cut, because that was a day-to-day task you were doing. But it gave you the option to say, hey, maybe I want to start a different business today. How many people would, like,
Yeah.
love to just, get up and say, hey, I want to start a different business? Because all of us that are in this, I can't speak for everybody, but most people that are, workaholics and into business like this and entrepreneurship, we probably will never, stop. We get bored. You only play so many rounds of golf. I don't actually play golf at all, but I mean, you can only play. I guess so. I guess I can't say that because I don't play golf. I play a little bit, and I was like, this isn't for me. It's too. I need to
don't
be
blame
doing
you.
something. I need to be doing something. I'd rather be working, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all, man. I'm
Yeah,
in
I'd
the
rather
same
be
boat with that.
working. Yeah, you can only like retire for so long. We all have this itch where it's like we can do more. Like, what else can I do? But you might hit that point with even with what you're doing, and you should be able, with wealth, you should be able to take yourself out of it and then try and start something else just because it's awesome.
Yeah, just because it's fun, why not?
Yeah.
Another thing to learn, to always constantly keep learning. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a mindset.
It is. Hey, we're there's not a whole lot of people like all of us that are, listening to the podcast like this, or maybe a lot of people do, but how many people, are going to take action and want to kind of keep going down that path? Just get out there and take action and try to chase this.
Yeah, that's the big thing, man, is like I feel like there's so much information out there in, kind of today's day and age, like, whether it's over social media or, just over the internet in general or from books, podcasts, like I feel like there's an absolutely absurd amount of information like that's very, very easy to access out there. But it's just a matter of like how far do you want to take it, I guess. Like how much action, like would you want to take, to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, for some people, it's a huge disruption out of your lifestyle or out of your
Yeah.
day, or even, it's like it's really important to surround yourself with like-minded people a lot of the time, because it really does. It starts with the mindset where you got to keep yourself into like a positive feedback loop. Like that's why you have your inner core, whether it's your family or your significant other or your spouse, and make sure that they're supporting, or they understand kind of what you're going through, because it's not easy, and it's always a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff comes up, and it's just the difference between when you're working a regular job. There's less. I mean, sure, you have your manager positions where you have responsibility, but when you're running a business and paying people, and et cetera, you have a huge amount of responsibility that, like, if you just stop, like there's other people that wouldn't have jobs because of
Yeah.
it, or like wouldn't. Yeah, it would suck to have to lose everything, and you have people that depend on
Yeah. Until you systematize.
you. Yeah, I systematize it. It's tough, but at the same time, it's like I would never want to do anything else, like, out of any other profession or anything like that. Maybe someday try and start different businesses down the line, but man, I just couldn't see myself doing anything else.
I don't blame you at all. I feel like real estate's just different. Like it's like the asset class and like the control like over it, like over returns, and like just the ability to just do so much, like do so many different things, and then like build a business around it. And you could build like a bunch of different businesses around like a bunch of different things,
Exactly.
and then like have them all work together. And like I feel like it's just something else that I don't even like really have words for it. It's just different.
Totally. I get what you're saying, and like we were talking about before, not a lot of people will actually get out there and take that leap, and actually, it's been quite a path, and I hope to keep it moving forward, and getting into new endeavors,
Yeah.
different projects, and keep that system going to achieve that, the well-oiled machine that I was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. What next question, Mike? What are the most effective resources that have helped you the most so far on your journey? I know we've gotten into quite a few of them,
Most
but
effective resources.
yeah.
Oh, definitely. Oh my God. I don't think I would have been able to do it if it wasn't for YouTube and Google. I'm not even joking. Like when I said, because when I first started, like I didn't really know anything. And it was like YouTube, it just YouTubed everything. And
Yeah.
some people would tell me, "Oh yeah, you can't figure everything out." No, you're right. You can't master something off YouTube, but you can know enough that you can figure it out on the fly. Whether it's how to manage my tenants, like
Yeah.
right through YouTube, type it in, or what to do when this happens. They're like Biggerpockets, for instance,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like in the website, they started when I discovered that and just saw the forums, and it was like, hey, you could have like 100 people comment on some problem that you had, some weird thing that you get an input from a million different people. And they're all out there too. Like, we're talking about there's not a ton of people that are into this, but they're all there. And I mean,
Yeah.
if you need a question answered, it's like, hey, that's they'll answer it. And there was that, and also books too. I
Yep.
think mindset books. Definitely did a lot of reading on that helped as well. Um, but yeah, probably the big factor is YouTube and and having some supportive people around me.
Yeah. That's it at the end of the day, man. Like just to like be able to have those resources. Like Bigger Pockets, it's such a game changer. Like
Yep.
a ridiculous game changer.
Mhm.
Like just the access you have, and like you mentioned, to ask really a question about anything.
Yeah,
Or
because there's always different problems. Like
yeah.
not every single deal that you structure, or even every single tenant you get will have a different random request or something that you're like, wait, I don't know if this is right, or maybe it happened, maybe they're trying to scheme something, for instance, or like
Yeah.
try to get a break on their rent. And you type in what's going on, and next thing you know, there's a landlord from some other part of the country that's like, you know what? I know exactly what's going on here. And I
Yeah.
went through this like just the other day with a tenant that I had. Having that net. I guess you could say it's the network, and other people, even in your local area too. With when it comes to different, either building departments or
Yeah.
different directions of the city. You talk to some locals, say, so what's going on here? Why is this? Oh, that's because a couple different events happened, and now they're all worried about this, and you need to make sure that, like, for instance, your buildings all have, or like sprinkler systems, I don't know, et cetera, et cetera. Like having a good network to be able to answer some of your questions when you need help is great.
Yeah. It really is the network too that's everything. Like even like just kind of shooting the breeze, like the relationships that you build are ridiculous. Like just the possibilities are really endless. Just to be able to like fire off questions at each other. And like I definitely want to stress too, like even like one sentence from like just the person that like you decided to talk to, or like message or something over like social media, like literally can change everything.
Yep.
Like it's happened, several times, to me that I can kind of remember, like, just throwing a question by somebody, or even, throwing something on Bigger Pockets
Yep.
and hearing like, like five different opinions all of a sudden, from like you said, from different people that this has actually happened to,
Yep.
who are a lot more well versed and a lot more experienced. And it's out of like usually a pretty genuine place, and like just
Yeah,
hearing something like
every
that.
just wants to chime in and like help
Yeah.
out, help another investor out. Yeah, yeah. It really it is great to see how people are so willing to just get up there and say, hey, yeah, like this happened to me, this problem happened to me, and here's how to solve it. And there are definitely some different opinions you'll get on there too. Like you'll hear
Yeah.
people debating each other, because like we were saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but like
Yeah.
it's just to be able to have the other opinions to help you make a better decision on either what direction you want to go with a certain issue, or even for your company as a whole.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It really is like it's huge.
Or even how I ended up finding you or on Instagram, or vice versa. Like I think
I think so.
Instagram changed everything for me when I started made the real estate account,
Yep.
and just finding so many other people in the area that are doing the same thing. That was huge. And just like, it really felt like a sense of community. And I met a lot of people through Instagram. And I actually, yeah, that, I guess I could add that to the last question with YouTube and YouTube, Google, and Biggerpockets and Instagram, social media. Yeah. Which comes back to the network.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable, man. You know, like you meet so many people and like they're so close. Like one thing that was really like I guess a mind blower for me was, I mean, like if you type in like, you know, like investors around Boston or something, or investors in Massachusetts, like the amount of people who are literally like sprinkled around you, like a couple minutes from you, it knocks your socks off. You're like,
Yeah.
this guy's doing like some really crazy stuff, and he's like 10 minutes away from my house. Like it's exactly, it really is just a sense of community. You know, I'd like to see people that are like so close and like just getting people together, and
Yep.
it's something else. It really
I
is.
know nowadays with all the COVID stuff going on, a lot of the meetups weren't happening, and it's been a lot more difficult. But like you said though, there's still social media, there's still people talking through the Facebook groups and other outlets as well. And yeah, I mean, probably wouldn't I probably wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now as far as the knowledge and just the confidence you get when you have such a great network behind you.
Yeah, it really is something different. You know, and not even to mention like the opportunities and stuff that can come about from stuff like that, and the doors can open.
Oh,
You know,
totally.
yeah, like even like you could be building relationships with people that you're gonna be like lifelong friends with, and you're gonna like boost each other up to keep fighting through the baloney. You know what I mean? Like
It's like, and it's all love too. I mean, like I
it
say, it's
is.
less competition and more building. It's awesome to see like other people's journeys. Like I really
It
do.
is.
I really love seeing other people's success. Like
Yeah.
it makes you feel good to see, or like especially the people you're close with or that you talk to a lot. Like I mean, we celebrate the victories with each other.
Exactly. It's I feel like it really is, just kind of like no other, like I haven't really found, I guess, another, I don't know, like profession, or I don't even know what to call it really. Um, yeah, I don't know, like just another activity maybe, like where people are this supportive like most of the time. Like you said, earlier in the podcast, like it really is a team sport,
Yeah.
and like just constantly helping each other, and like you know, we're all eating out of the same pie. Oh, wait, we're not all eating out of the same pie. There we go. But yeah.
I mean, you could say, well, you could say as far as like we're talking about passing deals, or even yourself, you've encountered some very helpful people.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work for one person, it works for another. Or even like
Yeah.
JVing with people. You're better off having everyone eating a small piece out of a pie than getting no pie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like it's kind of the way to look at
Yeah. I totally agree.
it.
What is something that you thought about business, networking, or wealth creation that changed as you went along?
Wealth creation that changed as I went along. Probably just understanding like the different fundamentals of real estate and you kind of figured out what I was looking for, like the vision wise, is to, when I first got into it, you're thinking, oh yeah, you're like generating all kinds of revenue off like rental income. And then kind of like as you go, you figure out, okay, well, these are the expenses. You realize, well, if you're really trying to amass a huge, amount of income, you'd want to get into more like flipping properties. And if you're looking more for that generational passive income, or I guess nothing's ever really passive though.
Yeah.
Come on, you still gotta get up and make moves for stuff. But I mean,
Yeah.
like you kind of just understanding the different ways that you can do this, and like what kind of to gear it towards what you're trying to do and really understand yourself. And I think it helped me to get really specific about what I was looking to get out of this, and then how to redirect into how to get there. Yeah, like what's going to make the most sense. So yeah, I guess that's probably something that I learned along the way. Also all of those all of the screw ups and mess ups, all of the ways that went wrong. I guess you could say that too. There was a lot of different life lessons. Yeah, obviously the rooming house development that was never supposed to be a development. That was yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to stem kind of right off that, I feel like it's huge to kind of have, the self-awareness to see, where do you actually want to go with the things that you're doing? Like, how are you going to use the tools that you're getting to get you where you want to be? Because I feel like sometimes it can be kind of tough to, just kind of sit down and be like, all right, like, what do I like actually want to do with this? And like, just boil it the hell down. And like, all right, so actually thinking about it that way, if I go in this direction, it might actually help me a little bit more than what I was thinking before. And like, just to kind of always be like evaluating, and like making sure that you're staying, some kind of path that's going to put you towards, your main
Like, yeah, of
impact.
course.
Yeah.
I think what happened was, I mean, it was great. I think we got to a point where everything was going great. Like, I mean, I'm able to sustain, I got a day-to-day, I got all these day-to-day tasks. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I'll take a segment of the business and say, okay, I'm going to work in this aspect of the business today, and I'll save this amount of money so then when the rent comes in, I'll be able to collect this amount to pay my own bills. You know what I'm saying? And then like, but you hit a point where you max that out. You only have so much time or so much responsibility that you can take on without being able to, you'll start to let stuff slip through the cracks. And then I won't be getting that 8 hours of sleep every night. Will be like, you won't be able to get to all of the problems. So that's kind of why, as far as the vision, when it's for going forward, it's going to be making sure that you get the right deal and being able to put the right people in place to kind of, you can always stay working in the business on the original core. If it does what it does, it pays the bills, and then just to be able to grow it. But yeah, I learned a lot over the last going on, it's over 7 years now. It started like 2014.
Yeah. Wow, that's so true. What is your best piece of advice to new investors that want to start and manage their rental portfolio?
They want to manage the rental portfolio. Okay. Communication is everything. I think that if you've made that decision, you want to start out and you want to self-manage. So let's just start with that. Communication is key. There's lots of times like you'll inherit a property, or and the tenants that you get, they had a bad experience with the previous landlord. A lot of it came down to communication, or they just had an idea of like, they don't really, if you don't have any communication, they're just going to paint a picture of you the way that they want to perceive it. But if you come in there and you overly communicate, or you're responsive, and you listen to people's gripes, and I mean, there's a lot of time that is involved with it. There is, and it can bog you down, especially when we're talking about when you're starting to scale up, stuff starts to slip through, and you only have so much time. But when you're first starting out, to really get a solid core to like do what you need it to do, like if you have a few rentals, or a smaller portfolio, you should be able to have the time to be able to talk to like when somebody texts you, or there's an issue of something, or they need to know about how to get their mail delivered, for instance. Like take the time, write out a well thought text and say, hey, like, or if you screwed something up, own up to it, and explain what you're going to do and the steps you're going to take to remedy the problem, either so it doesn't happen again. And I would say too, if that doesn't sound like you have enough time to do that, definitely look into getting property management right from the start. If it's something where that's not what you want to be doing. And sometimes, different personalities, it's like, hey, I don't really want to do too much communication with the tenants. And that's probably a good direction to go in. But I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. And even if people are getting pissed, like let's
Yeah.
say they had like the water heater went out, and it's tough to get a plumber out on a dime. I've changed water heaters myself. I mean, but like that's when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't know how to do that or you don't want to. It's like it's tough to get someone to come out on a dime. But if you're there and just listening to like the screaming person on the other end of the phone, even if you're just like, hey, like put yourself in their shoes. How would you want to be treated if you were them? Like, let's say you don't own a building and you rented from somebody. What would you expect for just the basic necessities of expectations from your landlord? And just say that's how you should act towards them, is how you would want to be treated. It's like it's basics. It's like you said, anyone can do it. It's basic common sense. It's like the golden rule, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting though. Because I mean, like I feel like that's like do you think that they can kind of like your tenants and stuff can kind of sense trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. Or yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Are you saying like they can kind of sense where your head's at? Like if you're gonna be like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it comes off like even your tone of voice or how you talk to them. And like, if you act like you're better than people because you're the owner of the building, you're going to have a rough time, because just because you own the building doesn't mean that people are going to, bow down at your, you know what I mean? At
your beck and call. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me live here. Like, sorry. I mean, even if you think that way, I mean, sure. I love real estate. I think, people that buy properties and own their own stuff are like, it's great. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, not all of the world thinks like that. You got to remember, put yourself in other people's shoes. And as soon as like you start with that mentality, a lot of the other problems kind of sort themselves out, because they know you're not the person they envisioned or wanted you to be, so that they could act irrational with you and like get away with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say like empathy more or less is something like really huge?
Huge. It's everything. It really is, like when it comes to like tenant management and you're gonna have your just people that are gonna act irrational. You're gonna have to evict people, but I mean, a lot of it, people know when they're doing something they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, or breaking the rules and just being a real huge pain. But like for the most part, if you're being really genuine, following the rules, like not break, having a good code of ethics, they see that, and they're going to be like, yeah, I know, I'm just really like I'm being crappy, and you're not baiting into all of those not baiting into them to like get a reaction that they want. So if you're just playing it cool, doing everything by the book, you should vote out pretty well.
Wow. That sounds like just incredibly effective, depending on, kind of how you carry like yourself and how everything's structured and everything. And it sounds like it can really either, make your life a lot easier, or maybe kind of in the other direction as well, depending on,
Yeah. Exactly. How you carry yourself really, really will, it'll set a tone. It will.
Yeah. Damn. What is a common myth about building a portfolio that you would like to debunk?
Oof. That you'll get rich quick.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's like the basic. the basic myth is, yeah, like you see the people with like luxury cars all over the place. Oh yeah, just invest in real estate. You'll be here like in no time. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's a long play, and it's about the wealth as we were defining earlier. Sure, yeah, I guess you could flip properties, but that's not building a rental portfolio. Building a rental portfolio is, you're going for that financial freedom.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually, when the mortgage is paid down, you'll end up with you can end up with some serious cash flow where it's actually a lot of it's going into your pocket, unless you're refinancing and just trying to build it even larger. Because there's a different goal, like we were saying. If that's what you're going for, then yeah, you might as well just keep refinancing and keeping the cash flow low and just keep amassing a critical mass.
Yeah. Whatever fits the vision, right?
Exactly, it's the vision. What are you trying to do here? You gotta ask yourself.
Yeah. And a last but not least question, Mike, do you read? And what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone?
Oh, geez. I'm sure everybody gets this is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would
Yeah.
like, I'm not kidding. I would love to just, buy a ton of those and just hand them out to
Just
people.
give them out. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with you.
It's like a must. That book really was what I read that and I was like, wow, I just align with this thinking. And I was like, this is even before I had read it. And I was like, this makes sense now. Like, this is kind of like the why.
Yep.
And it's all in this book. It was like the manual.
It really is. Yeah. I read that book at least once a year, and I'm planning on doing it for the rest of my life, just to kind of catch up. Like, that book was like $9 for like literally a priceless amount of information. I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, like even from the beginning of that, where you saying, "Oh, you're gonna come in and ask for a raise," or what? Keep asking for a raise. I forget exactly the small story in there, and he's like, no, until you're like, it doesn't matter the raise. Like it has nothing to do with when you're chasing that dollar. It's like, oh no, I deserve more. All this, it's like that doesn't matter.
Nope.
Like, it doesn't matter. You want to care about the system. Exactly. It's about building the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I totally agree with you, man. I'd love to like even give that book to like high school kids, like
a graduating class, maybe
yeah.
give it to a whole graduating class. They'd appreciate it.
Yeah. That's an idea.
Yeah, maybe try to, if anybody knows of like, even don't having someone, donate it, sponsor it, of giving all of the people a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yep. I'm gonna write that down on a whiteboard somewhere. I'm gonna write that upstairs. That would be a really cool idea, like imagine the impact too. Like even like just one person that's like, oh wait, like I don't have to do things the way that society tells me to necessarily.
No, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to just punch a clock every day and then retire at like 65, 70 and on whatever 401k you had. If it was a matching plan, you might be good.
Maybe, yeah. Who knows, like, 20, 30, 40 years from now, like, yeah.
You never know. But yeah, it's
But
pretty
yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here, Mike. I could literally keep talking to you for hours, man.
I know, I could say go for hours on real estate, but yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
The pleasure is all mine, man. Is there anywhere on like social media that you can be found at all? I'd love to drop them.
Just the Instagram handle, Property by MCB.
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. Anybody can DM me if you have any questions or want to reach out. I always like talking real estate as we were doing.
Yeah, I'll definitely drop that below, guys. Go follow Mike, send him a message. All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets. Until next time, let's build together.